Hello. When we left Max, he was apparently in a near-empty house with an overcooking macaroni cheese. "Where's everyone?" shouted Max as he headed downstairs, and almost at once heard Louis's voice droning behind his bedroom door. "Louis, come on," he called. "Why?" "Food." "I'm singing." "Well, shut up and come and eat." Louis huffed indignantly down his nose and drove louder, so Max went to look for Abby. She seemed to have done one of her usual vanishing acts. There was no one in the kitchen when he opened the door, but the table was ready for supper, with a fresh loaf of rye bread waiting to be dunked in peppery olive oil, and a bowl of watercress and lettuce to go with the macaroni in the oven. It was a lovely sight. All that was needed, thought Max, now very much happier, was baked beans with the macaroni to make it an entirely perfect meal. He checked the cupboard for a can, but there wasn't any, so he took a handful of biscuits and a chunk of cheese to keep himself going and wandered into the rocking horse room where the mobile signal was the best. There he dropped down on the sofa and began firing off a chain of trainer-related threats to Danny. They went with satisfying swiftness for once. It wasn't until Max sat back to wait for the replies that he noticed how dark the house had become. Also, he had the strangest feeling of being watched. So strange and so strong that for at least a minute he sat motionless, his eyes fixed on his phone screen, his nerves flickering with unease. When he looked up at last, there was a face at the window, a pale, still face, pressed against the glass, eyes half veiled in darkness, breath misting in the cold night. There, and then gone. Upstairs, Louis sang on, a thin, eerie drone. But Max, who'd frozen in shock, now sprang into panicking action, ran to the front door, fixed the safety chain, shoved across the never-used bolts, top and bottom, and then turned back to the kitchen to do the same there, knocking down his bike on the way. "Ah!" he gasped as a pedal hit his shin, then shoved it aside and hobbled to the back door. There were no bolts on this one, nothing to hold it except the lock, but he grabbed the table, spilling the salad, and managed to wedge it with that. "Max! Max!" cried Louis in the doorway. "It's all right," panted Max, checking the window lock and pulling down the blinds. "It's all right, don't worry, let me past. Is your bedroom window open?" He raced upstairs without waiting for an answer, and Louis ran after him, protesting, I tied it, don't mess it all up." "There," said Max, slamming shut the window, closing the curtains against the dark, and scattering all Louis's neat row of star-shaped cat biscuits lined up like an offering on the windowsill. "Oh, God, what's that?" There was someone at the door, hammering hard with a heavy iron door knocker. Max grabbed Louis and then held him tight. "Don't make a sound," he ordered. "There's something weird out there. I saw them at the window." Louis stared at him, his eyes beseeching and full of questions. "Thump, thump, thump, thump," pounded the knocker at the door. "You stay here," ordered Max. "I've got to leave you. I'm going down with my phone." Louis's mouth wobbled and wobbled, but he made no sound. "It'll be okay. The door's bolted and the chain's on. I need to find a signal, though. I'm going to ring the police." Huge tears began to pour down Louis's cheeks. "I want Mum," he wailed, running to the window. "I want Theo. I want Abby and Esme. When are they coming?" At exactly that moment the thumping paused, and from down in the street a voice called, "Louis, where's Max?" "Abby!" shrieked Louis, then skidded down the stairs, dodged Max's fallen bike, and began tugging at the front door handle. Then Max knew what a fool he'd been. He had to help Louis with the bolts, and then he had to move the kitchen table so it was a table again instead of a barricade. Miserably, he fumbled to rearrange the lettuce and watercress, found the bread on the floor and picked it up. "I just thought beans would be nice," he heard Abby say, sounding completely bewildered. But he couldn't look at her, he couldn't look at anyone, so he concentrated on opening the oven and lifting out the macaroni cheese. He only knew his hands were shaking when a voice behind him asked, "Max?" Max jumped and spun around, his oven mitt slipped, and bubbling hot macaroni cheese in a blue glazed dish dropped and smashed and spattered at Esme's feet. Esme gasped, and Abby shrieked, and Louis started crying again. Max stood transfixed amidst the shrieking and the broken china and macaroni, smelling more wonderful than ever, unattainably wonderful, for what felt like hours. Hours and hours, struck speechless, with Esme there in front of him. "Staring," said Abby afterwards. "I didn't mean to stare." And not saying a word. "I couldn't think." And then you ran away. We only went to the shop to buy beans. We forgot to take a key. Esme took one tiny look through the rocking horse window and... Oh, shut up. You barricaded the house and terrified Louis and dropped the macaroni cheese and ran away. It was true. Max had bolted. Out into the windy street, past the noodle shop and the little grocery. He'd run and run far into the evening. He'd run all the way to Danny's house, to Danny's closed door, and there he had stopped. There, too, Theo had appeared, like a miracle on his bike in front of him, and had braked and shouted, "Max!" Theo got off his bike and walked quietly beside him until Max had managed to look at him and speak, and after that they went back together, phoning ahead to say they were on the way. When they arrived, they found the kitchen tidy and only the faintest smell of cheese in the air. Theo went out and bought wonderful noodles and made them all use chopsticks. And Esme could do it best, and Abby nearly as well, and Louis put his face right down in his supper and got noodles in his hair. It became a sort of party. Max ate noodles and juggled chopsticks and pretended he was at the party too. But he wasn't. In his head he was still struck speechless with Esme in front of him. Esme, seen at last, swinging dark hair, scooped neck black t-shirt, showing bright pink bra straps, tight black jeans and silver ballet shoes spattered all over with macaroni cheese. All night it was the same. Long after Esme had gone home, sent in a minicab by kind, tired Theo, and Abby was asleep, and Louis was asleep, and Iffen stretched out beside Louis was asleep, and even the wind was sleeping too, not an ivy leaf moving. Max lay wide awake, staring out into the dark. All he could think of was pinkness and blackness and silver shoes and the way she had said his name, slow and questioning. Max? He didn't know if it was the best night of his life or the worst. It was impossible to tell.